Justice League vs. Godzilla vs. Kong, number 4, written by Brian Buccellato with art by Christian Deuce, Tom Derenick, Luis Guerrero, Richard Starkings, and Jimmy Betancourt. And it's weird for the idea of a book called Justice League vs. Godzilla vs. Kong being something that's not exactly fun, which is it's crazy to me. The idea, like, this should be nonstop because on top of having all of the kaiju of the MonsterVerse and stuff like that, one of the biggest disappointments to me when you have a Godzilla movie are the people, because you spend too much more time with people in the movies. But now the people that we're spending time with are the Justice League and the Legion of Doom, and for some reason, this makes it more boring than actual the people in a Godzilla movie, and I have no idea how that's possible. Now, it's not bad by any means. Like, you know, you could still have fun with the idea of the entire series overall because you do have 6 issues, and right now we are only at issue number 4, but for some reason, issue number 4 is a snooze fest.
It is, and I don't get why any of this should be a snooze fest. I mean, you have, and I'm not exactly the biggest MonsterVerse fan, but the idea when this was announced, people thought, oh my God, this is going to be so awesome. This is cool. How are they going to do this? And there was people debating, oh my God, Superman this, and we'll have that. And you take Superman off the board.
Godzilla killed Superman. The end.
You take him off the board, and boy, Batman in this is so upset.
Oh my God, Superman, I love you so much. You got to come back to life.
He has a heart bigger than all of you. He's just yelling at people.
I will avenge you, my love, Superman. I shall kill the kaiju Godzilla.
It's funny because you get where they haven't given up on Superman, but they're kind of like,
they gave up on Superman. Look, in this book, you have the solar array. They're trying to, like, you know, juice him up. At one point, as you go back later on, they turn the light off, Jim. They pulled the plug, essentially, as far as I'm concerned.
It is that idea where you're at the scene, you're doing the paddles, and then they decide, okay, call it. And he won't take it. He's like, there's no way. It works in that, but it's so weirdly over the top. But like you said, I've seen some of the MonsterVerse, especially the Godzilla stuff. And yeah, when you have it, it is a tough play because you have where you think you need that point of view from the people, but you're there. And what I think that Brian Buccellato loses track of is how cool this could be, but also why we're here. And we are here to see versus. We want to see these things. You even said, boy, if Kong goes after Godzilla, we have a change of what would be the history, not that it's continuity or anything canon, but it'd be a cool play. You separate them. We barely get Kong. Finally, we do, and he's there with a stare-off contest with Supergirl.
Kong, like usual, has nothing to go in this whole thing. And even the idea where it's Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong, and the entire series so far, now that we have the kaiju on this DC Universe Earth, it's just been these lesser kaiju that you don't care about that we're spending the most of the issues with. And I'm like, can we just have Godzilla and Kong do something with the Justice League? Because you are making sure that, like, you won't get that until the final issue. And by that point, nobody cares anymore because you spent the entire thing with these lesser kaiju that aren't doing anything.
Yeah, so it's Justice League. Well, actually, it's Superman versus Godzilla. Kong staring off, and me fighting boredom. That's what it is. It's Jimmy versus boredom.
I'm telling you, for the ones we had so far, it seems like it might as well be called, you know, Justice League versus Batra versus Manda. You know, that's going to bring all the people to the book.
Oh, yeah, they're all there. But so if you are, and maybe some people are having more fun than we are, but it just isn't set up to be fun. And a lot of the things that happen in this are seem like they're set up to get away from the fun. You end up having Kong staring contest with Supergirl. Suddenly, Kong seems to understand Supergirl.
And Supergirl realizes this.
And then she flies off. And then Green Arrow's there, and then suddenly you get League of Assassins. I'm like, what is this book doing?
Time to fight some ninjas.
It's going away from what is on the marquee, the Godzilla, Kong,
which is
and
crazy
Justice
because
League.
You have all of these things with the idea that, like, okay, things are happening now because we're leading to that big thing. But it just seems like we're always just constantly leading to that big thing, which is the marquee, the title of the book. But until we get to that point, it's just a bunch of nonsense. It's kind of boring overall. Like, up until this point, I've been having fun with the book, but this is just really showing the cracks with what's actually going on because not much. Like, hey, there's Supergirl with Kong in the previous issue, and she punches the monkey. And this issue, she's staring at the monkey. And I'm like, we have nothing for Kong to do this entire time.
No, and we thought that the funny play, wink, wink, is the infatuation with blonde Supergirl.
Would have been great.
And it doesn't seem to be that. And then what I get from this, it's a 6-issue mini that maybe should have been 4. Like, it seemed like in this issue, we don't have a lot to do with setting up stuff, but the setup is just man, I think that Toy Man might have been up to something. Everybody's coming to the conclusion separately, but we already know that. And
we still have to build a Mecha Godzilla as far as I know.
Because Lex starts talking stuff. He got the signal. He's doing all this stuff with, like, okay, what's Lex doing? And he's even kind of alluding to things. He's not real. I want Lex to be that, crazy over the top. Ha ha, I'm going to build this. And then you have the Mecha Godzilla. But even then, why does it take everybody else there to do? It's just so weird. And then even with the League of Assassins, where they're collecting skulls that I don't quite get, but you also have Lois who comes in.
I don't even know why the League of Assassins is in this and what they could have possibly to do for the next 2 issues, because you already have the Justice League and the Legion of Doom and everything they're doing. You're even adding people to the Legion of Doom for this whole thing, on top of Toyman having the Dreamstone that brought the kaijus. You have so much that out of nowhere. Ninjas! Suddenly stop it. Please stop it.
I said, and just so everybody knows, me and Eric end up on our Patreon. We have already talked about this at length. We talk on our Patreon each Thursday. We have a spotlight episode. Eric, 2 issues picked by the badasses of the Get Fresh crew. Then we talked about this in length. And when we talked about that, we were pretty confused about why you would do all those things. And
why a lot of things.
Yeah. And so you have the personal touch is Lois, who's like, oh, Superman, you can't die. You were going to marry me. I say yes. It's nice enough, but you're just sitting there like, Lois, you ain't Godzilla.
But it also takes you back to the first issue. It's like, remember the first issue of Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong, where there was no kaiju and Clark was just talking about the idea of marrying Lois, and that was the whole first issue? Remember that?
Yeah, remember that? Well, we're getting, and so then you already said, what we're going to have the big fight. It's not Godzilla. Kind of gets there, but it's definitely not Kong. It's an underwater giant monster that's attacking Atlantis. And then suddenly a signal goes off, and that's when Godzilla shows up, but it kind of felt very forced. And then what happens is
Aquaman releases the Kraken.
He releases the Kraken. That seems like a wow moment, but again, you're just every step of the way, it seems like Buccellato wants to get away from what this is and why you would start reading this. Other kaijus, other monsters, mainly besides Kong.
Oh, you say that. I half expect when we get into the next issue, you have the Kraken, you have this other underwater monster that I'm calling Manda, but it's like Godzilla sees this going on and he leaves, because why would we want to have a book that has Godzilla in it?
Actually, I could see Godzilla's like, yeah, I don't like these odds. He leaves. At one point earlier, And Lex went and got the signal, so we don't know. And even then, it's like out of nowhere. I think Lex has the signal. Okay, but Godzilla was heading towards the Fortress of Solitude for a rematch because it made no sense. And it's like he knows that Superman's done. Does he? I don't get it. And then
I don't know what anybody knows.
Yeah, and so what you should have that would just be full-out fights. See how cool it would be to have the Justice League fight Godzilla together, or see how they would deal with Kong and how they deal together and whatever. You just end up having a lot of people standing around. And I know that this is kind of a silly thing anyway. I said it from the get-go.
It should be sillier is the problem.
Yeah, and it should be real, really mindless fun. But I know that by the end, you're not really going to have a winner. That's how these always end up. But have fun before you get to that. And have fun with that as well. Have fun to get to a point where they're like, well, we realize this, and you're not doing that. It seems as if Buccellato, who I thought was going to have a lot of fun, I can't say that he's embarrassed. I don't know what he thinks, but it almost feels like he's embarrassed to just have a mindless fun book where you have kaiju action, and he has to make it a little bit more of something by having, Superman's going to ask Lois to match. You didn't need that. I don't know why they did that, and that was mainly everybody's main complaint from the get-go, and you're not getting past that. It started to last issue a little, and then we're back to this again, and it really was a disappointment. It's very weird. The art's okay.
I enjoy the art of this.
Yeah, and I like it. I hate it because I love when Godzilla shows up and the guy's doing nothing. He's there underwater, he's doing his thing.
Look, there's Godzilla. All right, moving on.
You have a couple cool characters in the Legion of Doom. They got a lot of people yelling and screaming at each other, but everything feels like it's trying to get you away from why you're here.
Mongols there for some reason, whatever.
Yeah, Mongols there. I said when we were talking about it at length that Black Mana, he's going with the full out, and I love it. He's going with the Wu-Tang Clan thing. Hey, listen, we all come together here. We fight these, and then individually we'll take down the different thing. But then everything leads back to, man, Toyman. Like, everybody's like, Toyman. But Get them then. Do something. It's weird. But what would you give it?
I would ultimately give this a 5.5 out of 10. It's a bit of a mess, but I think the art's fine, and we can get... I'm telling you, you'll enjoy some stuff out of there because there's big monsters doing some fighting, but just not enough to really see, be the book that you want this to be. Because for something called Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong.
Yeah, and I'm going to give it the same, 5.5. And my whole play of this is, I understand people might say, well, you guys are going too much into it. You're looking too much into it. It's just supposed to be fun, but that's our problem. Like, it's not that we want anything more special. We just want to have fun with it. And it seems set up to do that, but yet you're telling a story to get away from that. But the art's okay.
It's set up to do that, but maybe later, just not here.
Yeah, and we're already 4 issues. We have 2 more. It might really get cool. And then what'll happen is, because we're assholes, we'll end up complaining. Why did we get this earlier? But that's what I would say. I wanted this to be really fun. And I'll ask you, hear anybody talking about this? The only thing
Not
that
anymore.
You had anybody talk about, oh my God, Godzilla killed Superman. That's all. And everybody was using that out of context. So it really was crazy, but it seems
that
like...
was 2 months ago. Now they've moved on.
It feels like it's lost any sort of zeal with people, and it just really isn't much of anything. But both of us 5.5.
Well, that's what happens when you kill Superman.
Well, it does. Or when you have Godzilla and Kong, and the verses aren't really the verses. They're just kind of standing around. I imagine they go back to Godzilla, and he's there smoking. He's like leaning against the wall. Like, just call me when you need me, boys. And yeah, I don't know. It's just a disappointment so far, but it could get better. Could get exciting. But thanks, everybody, for listening. As I said, if you do like what you hear, we have extended things and expanded coverage of this issue in particular over at our Patreon at patreon.com/WeirdScience. You can hear us talk about that and a ton of other things, but also we have a weekly show, very weekly, Eric, that comes out every Sunday night with DC, and we talk about mostly all of the books and do it in a lengthy deal. So if you want to check that out, all that will be in the show notes. But thanks, everybody, for listening, and we'll talk to you all later.
You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.